Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very powerful show coming right up. Our special guest today is Gabrielle-Spencer, and she's here to talk to us about heart opening to abundance. Now, Gabrielle is a catalyst for personal growth and self-fulfillment by aligning and connecting your inner heart, spirit, and soul. She's known as a master facilitator for human evolution, a multidimensional energy master, and she communicates with your higher self to tailor healing, key codes, and activations specifically for your needs so you can move forward quickly on your path. So let's welcome to the show, Gabrielle.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you.
What a pleasure it is to have you here. And so, gosh, heart opening to abundance. What a great way to start the day, right?
Every day, if all of us could do it, it would be amazing, right?
Oh, my goodness.
It's a goal.
And it is a goal. And gosh, what a beautiful world it would be if more of us were in that space.
Exactly. So true.
Well, why don't you share with us a little bit of how you even got started on this path? Because I know you're highly gifted. And just so for our listeners that are new to you, just so we can learn a little bit more about you, it's like what's inspired you on this path and how did you even get started?
I think that the inspiration was survival, actually. For many people, I know that they can relate to this. Basically, I started in my 20s where I had my life going just perfectly great, and then it wasn't, right? It just suddenly falls apart. And I picked myself up and I started getting Reiki healing way back then. And it helped me to get on, my path. And so I was spiritual, and I tell everybody, yes, I was spiritual. In fact, I met my husband in Tibet in 1999 on a spiritual journey. And so you say to yourself, yep, I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. I was spiritual and I had my corporate career. Except for that, I wasn't doing the deep work. I was what I call always staying just within my energetic contract for what I was supposed to be doing here on this planet, right? So I was doing the bare minimum, really. And so in my late 30s, I had a wonderful corporate career, and I was making oodles and oodles of money, and I had $1 million plus home in Scottsdale, Arizona. We had the life, really wonderful life, 2 small daughters, and, everything was great. And when everything fell apart, because we all know, right, that's what was going to happen. That's just like a movie almost. You go, wow, that just came out of nowhere. And over a period of time, the housing crisis happened. And at the time, I was in mortgage banking and specialty lending and secondary financing. And so I have a financial background, and I tell everyone I'm pretty mind-oriented, and that's been like my biggest hurdle has been the fact that I'm very logical and practical, and I always relied on my mind to figure everything out. There's going to be an answer. I just need to think about it, and I need to start implementing things, and I'm going to eventually push, pull, and prod and get myself where I want to be, right? And it did work for me over and over, but every time things would fall apart, even though, it would take a series of years, of course, but it would still happen this way. And so when you pull back and look at it, you go, wow, that was a repetitive cycle that I couldn't figure out how to get out of. Well, in my late 30s, it was a devastating repetitive cycle, unfortunately, in that everything happened, and although energetically and as a human being you feel like it happens all at once, it doesn't, right? It spreads itself out. So every time you get whomped on the head, you feel like, okay, we made it through that. All right, we're going to do it. We're going to pull through this, and then whomp, something else happens. And so I've actually had to write down things that occurred like over a 3-year period because I actually forget the sequence because it was so overwhelming. So in general, I lost my great job, and we burned up our savings, which I had a good chunk of money. It wasn't like it went away in a day. And then a year and a half later, our house went into foreclosure. And then we got pregnant. I was 40 years old. And then my mother-in-law moved in with us. And then I had my son, and my husband was laid off a month later. And then 5 months after my son was born, my husband was diagnosed with cancer. And then my husband totally retreated from life, as you can imagine. So I have basically 3 small children, and our finances were obviously a mess. And it was just, bad to worse, right? And all this time we were still spiritual, but I was refusing to do my purpose. And I was so very frustrated, and I had gone to see a spiritual psychic. And I said to her, what is it? What am I supposed to be doing? How do I get back into corporate? And she looked at me and she said, you're a healer. And I said, no. I just want to be normal. I don't want to do that this lifetime. I don't want to be weird. I don't want to be, made fun of. I just want to be me. I just want to have a regular, ordinary life. And she just looked at me and she said, yeah, you're a healer. And I said, okay,
like, no,
I'm not, right? I'm not doing
it.
So I'm very upfront with everybody that, look, I resisted. There is no better resistance campaign going on than mine. And I resisted for 18 months, and finally, so things just keep happening. And, a lot of us joke about it, saying, well, like, that's the spiritual 2x4, right? You've heard that?
Oh, yeah.
Most people have. We all know that it just keeps getting more severe until you finally go, oh my, I need to be doing something else. And so one day I said, fine, I'll do it for 6 months. And if it doesn't work out, I'm going back to corporate. And so that was, my way of being able to deal with it, right? And so now that's been more than 10 years ago. So you just go, that's how I got on it. I was forced because that was my life purpose and my life plan. And it will happen, kicking and screaming, right? And then once we do and you open your heart to it, everything does shift because that's where you're meant to be. That's your aligned place to be. So that's how I got into it.
Oh, my goodness. It wasn't like you had a choice. It just took over.
I resisted I took my free will choice. I tell everybody, look, when you're at a lower vibration, and I know that we're going to talk about this, so it goes like this. When you're in that lower vibration, which according to Dr. David Hawkins is 0 to 200, it's fear-based programming, survival programming. You only have the choices of the rock and the hard place. And maybe a third choice, which is like do nothing, but that's still a choice, right? But it's pretty much you don't have good choices. I look at them and say now, well, that's the yuck choice and then the yuckier choice. Neither one of them is good. Neither one of them is the answer. Neither one of them is going to get you out of the slump that you're in. Because when you're at that lower vibration, you're drawing to you similar vibration, right? So how would your choices be amazing? And that's what happened over and over.
Well, and so were you getting a sense at that time when this was happening that, you were able to sense other things or see other things, that, as people walking by you can kind of feel what was going on with them?
I was doing healing work and on clients, and I tell everybody I kept my lives very separate. So all corporate knew I'm just Gabrielle, and I, at the time, was the number one money maker for the company in the country. And super well known, right? Everybody knew me. I was a legend. I could make amazing things happen. So that was my life. That's how everybody knew me. And then the other part of me, as I said, I was spiritual for a long time, and I had been developing my gifts again, meaning I always was semi-psychic when I was younger, but it wasn't anything that was talked about. I grew up in a very religious household, so it wasn't something that I actually ever really spoke about with anybody, but I always knew that I had the ability. And then, of course, it went away, right? And then when I started again in my late 20s, that started to reopen again. So I had rules about that too. So this is the great thing about being a mind person, and a lot of fear. And the fear was that I didn't want to be a healer again, because in many lifetimes, my past, as a healer, you're a witch, you've been burned at the stake, you've been, eyes gouged out. I mean, just too many yucky things. And you think there's still something within you that's like, okay, that's why I just wanted to be normal, because I don't want anybody to know that I can do this, right? Mm-hmm. So I was very busy keeping things super separate. And so the people that were in my spiritual life or the spiritual realm, they knew me as that. And then the other, the rest of my life knew me, as the other, as very, I'm a normal person. So for me, it was about being willing to be one person and really take my gifts. And part of my rules for myself and being willing to see again and hear again, I had a rule. So I had said earlier that I had said to them, to my higher self and the other side, all right, 6 months, fine. You've got me for 6 months. My other rule was that I didn't want to see anything gory, scary, or, disturbing. Like that was my thing. I was like, wow, I just can't stomach it. And so, there's a lot of residual pain there when you out and out will not do something, right? So that is something that I've had to, over time, it's been easier and easier to now where it's like, okay, that's not a big deal anymore. Where, 10 years ago, that was my rule. Like, I'll be willing to receive, but only these things. And so they did. The other side was awesome. They absolutely did. I would tell people, I always had the movie Jaws. You remember?
Oh, yeah.
The music that goes dun, 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 dun. Well, for me, when I would see things that I was helping a person to work through and release, I would always see up to the very moment before, the really bad thing would happen, and then I would just get the impression or understanding of what had happened, if that makes sense. They didn't have to actually see it.
Yeah.
So I have to praise the other side. They did a good job.
Well, and when did heart-opening abundance start to be part of your everyday life?
It took a little bit of time, Marianne. What I did for a long time, for about 8 years, was I worked with clients, and I call that period now my chaos management period. And it's where, a client would come to me because, life is falling apart. And so it's like, we're plugging our fingers in a dam, right? Plugging every hole and crack that comes up for them to try to piece it all back together so they can keep on. And what I found was that people were not able to hold that higher vibrational energy for a very long time. And the reason was because all the other areas of their life were still out of alignment that created that crack, right? Mm-hmm. But, when you're in chaos, you're just concerned about the pain in the moment. This is what I need. I need money. I need my relationship to be fixed. I need to deal with my kids or my husband or a job or whatever it is. That's chaos management, is when you're like looking at the symptom and going, oh my God, this needs, triage.
Yeah.
So what happened, I know, right? We all know that because that's pretty much how we exist. That's how our life runs. And so I got the message a couple years ago now that was, you have to go public. So, what fits with my whole story is that even in working with my clients, I would only take clients by referral. So I had nothing on the internet, no website, nothing. Like, you had to truly know one of my clients to come to see me. And still, I had a great business. But again, it was back to, I was really hiding from the public. I did not want to be out there, as I mentioned. So what happened was, a couple years ago, I received the message, and then I checked it with somebody I know and trust very well, and just said, okay, I know there's a message for me. Go ahead, and here I am. Give it to me. And it was, you have 10 months to a year to go public. Like, you have to bring your gifts out there, and you have to, it's like your greatest fear. Hello, here I am.
Mm-hmm.
So there you are. And so what happened was, I agreed because, as I mentioned, I already got the kick in the butt, and I really don't need to revisit that. I'm like, I understand
no do-over,
how this cycle works. Yeah, right. You're like, I know how this works, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and work through the fear and work on the multidimensional layers that need healing, so that I can do that and be good with it. And so I did. I started working on myself and started the process. And what happened was, as soon as I said yes, information was downloaded so fast. I tell everybody, the Heart Opening to Abundance program, the outline and understanding was like less than 30 minutes. And I keep index cards on my desk. And luckily, I had them handy, and on 3 index cards, wrote out the program. And it was just so amazing, because it wasn't anything that I couldn't understand, but it put it into this whole, like, oh my God, there it is. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It just kind of all fell together.
It just all came together. And so the idea is that when we're in base programming, so we all talk about, well, I need to reprogram my mind, right? This is very popular. And the problem is that our base programming, so your triangle, the body, mind, and spirit triangle, everybody's familiar with it. That is our base programming, and that is what we come in with. And your mind is in charge of your survival. So that base triangle is survival-based. It keeps you alive, right? Keeps you breathing, clothed. You've got your basic needs are met. So that's your survival programming. Your mind is in charge. It's in control of that programming. And so it's a 0 to 200 frequency, which are the fear-based frequencies, which also, when I started actually looking into it, like on a human level and actually researching, I was like, wow, man, the other side is they're just so amazing, the information that's available. And then when we start to understand it, we go, wow, that really blew me away. What blew me away about it was the 0 to 200 frequencies, so guilt and grief and gluttony and depression and jealousy, anger, all of these things actually also fit the same genre as the 7 deadly sins that other major religions talk about, which made me go, interesting, because always the clues are everywhere around us. We just don't understand it until you're at a vibration to understand it, right? So I got to see the parallel, like, holy cow. So these are the things we have to overcome. And those are our lessons from multidimensional existences. We're multidimensional beings. So there's a lot of things that have to be healed so that we can raise our vibration from that base programming. And so you do that in a multidimensional way by healing the multidimensional layers of your heart, then your spirit, and then your mind. And so that base programming triangle changes from body, mind, spirit to heart, spirit, mind. And when the heart and spirit are strengthened, because you notice I said those are healed first, when those are strengthened and aligned, it's easier. I always think of it like ganging up on the mind. It's easier for those two to sort of wrestle the mind into the triangle to be a cooperative third partner versus it's standalone, I'm in charge guy, right? So
yeah.
You bring those together.
I mean, it's like the heart can just really lead.
Yes, the heart leads. The heart is the leader. But all three of them together that's the magic formula. So when everybody talks about, I'm going to teach you the magic. Well, the magic is really about clearing yourself out so you raise your baseline frequency above that 200 of fear. And so that's where you reside naturally. And then when those three are in alignment with each other, that's when the magic, that's when the ease to tap into universal energy, that's when your gifts reawaken. It's when you're able to it's like the universe is endless. The higher your vibration goes, the more access you have to everything. And that's the magic. But those three things have to be brought into alignment because that triangle, as you know, the triangle is the base of almost every sacred geometry. They can make triangles in it, right? And Metatron's cube and all that. I mean, you need the triangle. So when you create the new baseline programming for yourself, then it flips again to as above, so below. And those three, your heart, spirit, and mind, then are able to connect with your higher self, higher mind, and your soul or the cosmic heart. That's all of that way. Do you see what I mean? It goes into that higher vibration. But that's the key in being able to make that flip into the higher vibrational, the cosmic side of yourself.
Mm-hmm. So what if somebody has unforgiveness? How does that play a part, and what can they do to release negative energy?
Forgiveness is excellent. It is the most powerful tool that we have as humans. And when you forgive, I've had a lot of clients say, well, I forgave Joni or Jack or whoever. How many more times do I have to do it? And that should be everybody's first key that it's not done on some deep level, right? If there's still some of that there. But the truth is that we have unforgiveness of ourselves, of the perpetrators. I call them the people that have influenced, affected, or impacted us, right? Because it's not always a direct hit. Sometimes, it's the indirect stuff, too, that happens, and it's hard to forgive. And then we have forgiveness of God, where we have to forgive God, and or we've been taught that God needs to forgive us, and then that's what's in there, right? So on a multidimensional level, it's what you're wanting to affect, because as you can see, there's super many layers of this forgiveness thing. And so I lead everybody in a forgiveness clearing because you want it to be on every level and layer of yourself. So it's truly over, and it's not going to come back up. Does that make sense? So
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and so how does somebody know when they get to, like, they've been working on the forgiveness piece, how do they know when they're done?
It doesn't come up anymore, and you don't even think about it anymore. It just goes away. It's so amazing. It's as if it's just no longer there. It doesn't get triggered. I mean, for most people, something happens in your life and you get triggered. And sometimes you realize you overreacted, right? You'll think to yourself, wow. Later, of course, you think to yourself, wow, I really sort of overreacted, right? But it's because it triggered all these other things that you don't remember consciously. It triggers those emotions that are buried, these feelings of I'm less than, I'm not good enough, everybody's against me, I never can get ahead. It triggers like a whole bunch that aren't even related to that situation. So what happens is as you forgive yourself and, like I said, the people that influenced, and by the way, I forgot one, and that is that at the same time you ask the higher selves of all those people that have played a part influencing, affecting, or impacting you, for you to ask them for their forgiveness for how you may have impacted them, influenced, or affected them. Because it's never one-sided, right? Everybody has their perception. And that, too, counts as karma and all sorts of things. And so you have to remember that you have to do all the sides. So you're forgiving yourself, you're asking those others you may have affected for their forgiveness, and you forgive them, and the same to God, toward God, asking forgiveness of the God energy and forgiving the God energy also. And for people, they may not understand this, but, let's say somebody died in your life, and there are people who, even if they don't say it out loud, they feel like, God took them from me. So in a way, that's still something that you have to forgive, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's that. You still have that feeling that you've been wronged in some way.
That's right. Or, cheated. There's a lot of blame that happens. Retribution, all sorts of things come out of how we feel wronged. And so that is why forgiveness is a great place to start, because, boy, getting rid of that's just like cleaning house, right? Just in all that we just talked about.
And what are some of the other areas that you see that people get stuck?
I think that people get stuck. Let's just start with the heart, because the thing about what we're taught in this reality is to logically think about things and to break them down and try to figure out their origin. But in doing so, we basically are coming up with the symptom, what it is that I'm experiencing. Then there must be a correlating belief or an event that happened. But what I have found in working with people is that almost every time it's something that's occurred in another timeline, another existence. And you won't remember it consciously. That's something that's in the subconscious and in your multidimensional layers, as I said, in your heart. So when somebody said, they'll say to you, my heart was broken. That situation, that I lost my child, my heart was broken, or, my husband betrayed me and my heart was broken. It's really happened in that timeline. You did have a piece of your heart break, or you've left a piece of your heart in some tragic event. Energetically, you've left it, or it's been hurt or damaged. And those have to be healed, because it's a trauma that's happened more than it's going to be a belief or somebody telling you over and over you're not good enough. Generally, it doesn't really impact you that greatly when it's just a belief. Does that make sense? your beliefs, the strong ones, the ones that are really stopping you, are the ones that have been created out of experience.
And so is that the way you determine if it's something that's happened on another timeline that you're kind of feeling this angst about or you're having difficulty moving through?
Well, I think that it's reinforced in this lifetime. So the things that you're attributing to what's created it are the things you're going to remember from this lifetime, right? But as we know, this is a learning planet. It's our school, and it's to remind us of the things that we need to heal and release so we can reclaim our mastery. So the answer is it will be repeated in this lifetime over and over and harder until you get it, until you heal it. And so as I said for myself, yes, from my 20s, I definitely experienced similar things as to what I experienced in my late 30s. And I realized, okay, it's not going to get better, right? It's going to keep getting worse. And gosh, I can't even imagine what's worse, right? And I don't want to imagine it. I want to move through this lesson, and I want to heal what it is. And for me, it was bringing my mind into alignment with my heart and my spirit and allowing all of it to work together versus I can only trust my mind, right? And most of us know that our minds, while fantastic, boy, they still lead us into quite a bit of trouble, right? But somehow
yeah,
exactly. But we want to believe that we thought about it and blah blah blah, and so it's the most logical answer, and that is awarded by society, that if you're thinking about it and you've got all your logical reasons, that it makes sense to do it, right? And we still get in trouble, but we don't blame it quite like we do with the heart, where our heart is closed or closing, or think of it like the lotus flower. It closes when it's been hurt, and so we protect it. And so in healing the heart, you allow it to blossom. And I see the heart as the portal of light. It is the easiest way for you to tap into higher vibrational light and energy from the other side, and to make you one with it, to bring it in, and then have it fill your entire being, project out all around you, and that is how you start raising the vibration of everything that comes in contact with you. Just through the heart. And that is why that's where you start, because that's your fastest way to raise your vibration.
Well, that must be such a relief to so many people, because it feels, I think, a lot of times like we work on clearing negative energy and getting into forgiveness and working on our heart. And I think a lot of times people feel like they're not really making progress.
Yes, and that would be because it's more efficient and more effective. And I'm all about being fast and being effective, because that's my background. Plus, it's, again, I definitely love the mind. And I tell everybody the mind has a place, but the point is it has its place. When you work on a multidimensional level, then you are accessing those layers that are holding the traumas and the hurt and, like I said, being maimed and burned and everything. That's being stored on a multidimensional level. It certainly didn't happen to Gabrielle in modern day, but it was so strong for me that I understood that I was still carrying it with me as if it were fresh, because I had nothing in my current background that would make somebody so strong to be like, I'm so not going out there and saying that I'm psychic or that I have the ability to tap into higher universal dimensions to, be a channel and to be a channel for higher vibrational frequencies. I mean, that just sounds nuts, right?
I guess it all depends on your friends, right?
That's right. Well, I mean, I just think that that's one of the things where you think, I had such an aversion that there had to be something really strong somewhere that was causing me to have that aversion, because there was nothing in my current life that would have set up an aversion that strongly. And so when people are working, often it's most common for everybody to talk about the beliefs that they have. Well, I feel that, my parents didn't have a lot of money, and they always said that we were broke and whatever, and I just can't get over that. And it's like, well, it could be that, or that reinforced what was already in there, and it actually stems from perhaps many lifetimes when you were a slave in Egypt, and then a few lifetimes where you might have been a friar or a nun, and you took oaths and vows of poverty. And it might have come from lifetimes when you were a beggar on the street. And do you see how that would be strong enough to really cause a problem with abundance?
Yeah.
Versus your parents saying, I'm broke.
Because you've got this story that's going on, is repetitive story regardless where it came from.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And so working on the beliefs of, what you heard or what you remember is only a surface symptom. It just reinforced that there's something deeper that needs to be healed. And that's where the multidimensional work comes in, because that's going to be swept away with that work. And as you dig out the roots, all the rest of it just goes away, because it's not being held in with, like I said, like the oaths, commitments, agreements. There are some people who have contracts to be a slave. There are people that have been, I don't know why, but I keep seeing Egypt. So, there are a lot, must be your audience, Marianne. So I see,
it must be, I swear.
Yeah, because I'm seeing a lot of the workers in that time period. So, you were a slave, and you didn't have rights. You weren't a person. You didn't have even survival programming that was honored even. You have a lot of issues going on just in, incarnating into that cycle a few times. So when we work on this, you go in to a person, you work through their higher self, because the higher self, I always think of it like a maze. So we may see, like, we have a problem with money, and as we talk, there are many symptoms of the money issue. But when you go to the higher self and you say, we need to be free, I need to bring in money, I need to be able to tap into universal energy so I can bring in money, the higher self every time will not start with anything related to money. It's fascinating, and it's fascinated me for years, because whenever somebody would come to me with a symptom of what they're experiencing in their life, bad marriage, bad job, whatever it is, the higher self never starts with whatever that symptom is. It's always something else that has to do with bigger traumas, like karmic things as well, where you may have taken away somebody else's bliss. And so it's a karmic thing that has to be healed and released, and you have to atone for it energetically. It's not about saying, well, forgive me. It isn't about the words. It's the energy. And I have received through channeling that it takes an energetic vibration 10 times greater than the vibration that created the trauma in order to heal it and release it. So that's pretty incredible.
Information. Yeah. Because a lot of times people are thinking, gosh, I'm never going to get beyond this. I'm stuck, or whatever the case is,
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard when you're in it you have to get to 10 times higher. We just said that, the fear-based frequencies are 0 to 200. And that's just to get you to your new baseline that is where you're not in a fear frequency all the time, just fluctuating, between them, the 0 to 200. But even so, let's say that the frequency, I even think that it goes negative, -0, you know what I mean? Like negative numbers.
Yeah.
But, we want to be nice and just say it's 0 to 200, right? Because that's easier to deal with mentally. But the point is that whatever that number is, 10 times that's pretty high. And so for most people, you would work with somebody who is able to tap into that higher frequency and be the conduit for you to help create that energetic flow that's needed for the healing.
That sounds so beautiful, and you put it in such a way that it's a difficult topic, I think, for a lot of people sometimes to wrap their heads around, but you make it really simple. So I appreciate you sharing that with us and sharing your insights with us today. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about the work that you do?
I would love to offer them a MP3 that will allow them to start working with their higher self and get healing and be brought into alignment with their higher self. Does that sound good?
Oh, sure. Where is that at?
I love giving away MP3s. I just love it because people, when you work with a higher self, this is something else that everybody needs to know. Like I said, your higher self knows what you need the most and how to get there the fastest. And that's what I love about working with people's higher self. So even when you listen to the audios, your higher self, just by you giving permission, by listening and being willing, will still be working on things that we may not even have addressed in the audio, because it's really about being connected in that energetic way, giving permission and allowing what is in your highest and best to occur, right? So with that, you can go to uanow.net. So it's actually for Ultimate Abundance Now, uanow.net/unlock. And that will get you to unlock and unleash your abundance. And that is all about connecting through your higher self to help bring you into alignment for your abundance. And abundance is everything. It is not just one aspect, which is money, which is most everybody thinks about. To be abundant and to reclaim your self-mastery, it's about having everything, reclaiming who you are from within, so you have that whole life abundance.
Oh, that sounds like just a beautiful place that not only you could start your day with, but also end it. You know, Gabrielle, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you. I have really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much, Gabrielle. It's been such a pleasure to spend this time with you today. Unfortunately, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.